Okay, hear me out. You know that feeling when you finally get home after a long day, or if you work from home like me, you close your office door for the night and you just breathe and you exhale. Everyone breathe. That's what your space should feel like a sanctuary, a place where you can truly unwind, let go of the stress, and just be. This is advice I'm giving to myself because I've been taking on a lot at work. And at the end of the day, if your bed is not the most inviting, relaxing, luxurious part of your home, we need to talk. Like, what are you doing? So here's the thing. Your 5 to 9 is just as important as your 9 to 5. You deserve rest that actually restores you, and that starts with Cozy Earth. And I'm so excited to be working with Cozy Earth because I have used their products before even working with them. This is a dream, okay? And you're going to have amazing dreams when you hear the rest of this. I have the Cozy Earth bamboo sheet set, and let me tell you, I even asked my husband for a review so I could talk to you about this. These sheets are so breathable. You literally sleep cooler. And by the way, I run very warm. Like, I cannot have a bed or like sheets or anything, a comforter that are warm or make me sweat because it's inevitable. So using these bamboo sheet set, it's game changing. Let me just do that one little line over because I used the wrong verb. So having sheets like this bamboo sheet set that I have from Cozy Earth is a game changer. It's literally several degrees cooler. There's no more overheating, no more tossing and turning, and the fabric is next level in terms of softness. Cozy Earth only uses the best materials, so you feel like you're wrapped in pure comfort. Plus, their durable weave means no pilling ever. And I hate pilling. All of my sweaters are pilling, and I just can't stand it. And then you end up having to do all this extra work to depill. But the good news, as I said, is that Cozy Earth's materials mean that there's no pilling ever, and it's guaranteed for 10 years. Let's also talk about their bamboo pajamas, because if you're still sleeping in that old stretched out t-shirt, it is time for an upgrade. These are lightweight but cozy, designed to help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer types of pajamas. It's the kind of comfort that makes you want to lounge all day. And by the way, I don't know if my mom is going to hear this, but this is what I'm going to get her for Mother's Day. Mother's Day is coming up, and this is terrible, but I always end up being like, oh my gosh, it's Mother's Day. But now, luckily, I have a heads up, and I'm reminding myself and you that Mother's Day is coming up. So buy your mother, your spouse, your dog mom, something amazing like these bamboo pajamas or the sheet set to really make their Mother's Day special. As a matter of fact, I'm going to ask my husband to get me the bamboo pajamas because I am sleeping in that old stretched out t-shirt and it is time for an upgrade. So here's the thing. What I really love about Cozy Earth is that they're committed to quality in every way. Their products aren't just luxurious, they're ethically made and responsibly produced. So when you invest in better sleep, you're also investing in something good. And if you're not sure if it's for you, totally fine, no worries. Cozy Earth gives you 100 nights to decide. 100! And if you don't love it, you can send it back. And with that, there's a 10-year warranty, so you know that they believe in their products. So if you're ready to turn your bedroom into a true retreat, one that feels like a luxury hotel, but better, go to CozyEarth.com and use my code HUMANHR for 40% off their best-selling sheets, pajamas, towels, and more. That's 40% off. That is like the best deal ever. And if you get a post-purchase survey, by the way, please let them know that you heard about Cozy Earth right here on the Bringing the Human Back to Human Resources podcast, because it is so helpful for them to know that my discussion with you about having this most fabulous 5 to 9 after your 9 to 5 impacted you in some way. And by the way, like I said, the first thing that I'm buying, not only for my mother, but also for the other mothers in my life, are those cozy, fabulous bamboo pajamas. So let's prioritize sleep, prioritize you, sleep better with Cozy Earth. Welcome to the Bringing the Human Back to Human Resources podcast. I'm Traci Chernoff, and I've spent my entire professional career in HR. Each week, we'll explore the delicate balance between people and business with the aim to reconnect the two and create meaningful outcomes. Listen in as I share my own experiences, challenge the status quo, and chat with guests from various industries about our mission to bring the human back to human resources. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for another week. We continue the conversation around DE&I this week because it's an important one. And so this week I have Yolanda Slan on with me, and she is Televerde's Chief People Officer. She is also an experienced HR and employment leader with a record of success in building and enhancing HR programs in both the private and nonprofit sectors. Yolanda joined Televerde from Southwest Center, where she last served as Director of HR, managing all HR activities and enabling the organization to function at its highest level through the recruitment, development, and retention of high-performing, mission-aligned employees. She's passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion, aka DE&I, and she has a deep understanding of talent management strategies, which has enabled her to create a positive impact in all of her past positions. Yolanda, it's such a pleasure having you on. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course. Oh my gosh. I've really been looking forward to our conversation because I think, first of all, we kind of hit it off. I'm just
Yes,
saying.
we did.
We totally hit it off. And, I think it's really important when we think about the subject of DE&I to hear from as many people as possible, because as we know, one of the things that we'll talk about in today's episode or this week's episode is that there are just a lot of misconceptions. And this has been something that's been brought up on my podcast in the last few weeks, in terms of like how we help to debunk some of those
Yes.
misconceptions. But I'd love to hear from you what draws you to DE&I, because this is something that I know you're passionate about and it remains a really important topic for you. But maybe let's start there kind of at the top. What really draws you to it and makes it a passion for you?
It's a passion for me. For one, I mean, I'm a visible representation of DE&I, but also what it stood for. I've also, I grew up with a hidden disability and really not knowing how to navigate when it wasn't so prevalent in the world and everyone spoke about how to navigate and try to fit in. And so most of us always go through this kind of imposter syndrome, trying to be something other than what we are, to fit in, to move ahead in corporate society, not only in school, but in work, and trying to mirror what I thought was normal. And then there wasn't a lot of space for uniqueness and for you to just be you. So that's really where my passion stemmed from, not only being a woman, but being a woman of color with a disability, and navigating and being able to be in a position to help carve out that space for others that are like me, that, being different, it's okay, and it can make you stand out. It's actually good qualities to have people that are not like you, to show a different
Right.
perspective of the world and how you view things. And I just think it really opens up our world as a whole, and you can reach a much wider audience when you just allow people to be who they are and bring their uniqueness to the table, especially in the workforce.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for sharing your own personal experiences around, some of these topics, both from, as you mentioned, being a woman of color and also having this, so to speak, this unseen disability. And, I would hope that and I would expect that there are listeners who really resonate with that, either based on one or both of those kind of descriptors. And what it does kind of make me think about is that just very holistically, if we take ourselves on a little bit of a journey here, companies for, I'm going to say millennia, but let's just say centuries, at
Yes,
least decades,
yes, yes.
as I went from millennia to decades,
Decades.
right? At least decades have celebrated global expansion
Yes,
and have said, oh man, this is amazing. We're expanding globally. We're getting people from all the different backgrounds. That is diversity.
that is
That is
diversity.
right,
At its
right.
core, that is diversity. Yes.
And when we think about that, this is one of the ways where I'm like, is anybody listening to themselves when they're really
They
confused
don't.
about what
They
DEI is?
don't.
I'm
They
like,
don't.
people probably have worked with or for global companies
Companies.
before, right? Who have had a global footprint, and that's always celebrated as it should be. And yet we're going through, I don't even want to call it a renaissance, but almost a reckoning in the US at least around what DE&I is. And I'm like, I didn't think that anyone was ever that confused, because we've always celebrated diversity. At least we should
We
have.
should
And
have.
then we were,
Right.
right, because maybe it's not always. But though the companies that really understood that differences of background, that is diversity at its core, that brings a whole lot of strength to an organization and to like a thought process, even
Right.
like
And
when
you
you have
go
people with different
globally
backgrounds.
because you want to reach a wider audience. You want your product or whatever you're doing to resonate with more groups of people. And that is diversity. And I believe with us in the US right now, we're going through this change or whatever we're going through. I don't even know what to call it.
I know.
But it's
This
because
thing.
we don't really understand it. We've made it something separate and apart from doing everyday business on a global scale. We've made it its own unique island, and it's really not. It's something that we incorporate when we just do business. I mean, and marketing that's what they do. They create ads, they create things that will target a wider audience. That's what DE&I is all about, targeting a wider audience and bringing that into the workforce and celebrating the unique so people can relate to one another. Products want you to relate to why you should use them. And it is for you. It is for everyone. That is what DNI is at its core. That's exactly what it should be about. But we made it, and companies for so long, for me, have done it wrong because they've made it so that they had to have these special DEI ambassadors or positions instead of just teaching their everyday corporate from the top down about how to incorporate differences into the workplace as a whole, not as some separate activity that you have to do, just how to remove some of your biases, some of your understanding. We made it where we don't educate people. We made it where we have to run it through this program to say this is what we're doing, or for marketing purposes to say we have this DNI program to be, in the cool gang, so to speak, or the cool kids, when instead of educating people, we made it its own separate thing and it was never incorporated into our everyday work function.
Hmm. You've made me, first of all, so true, everything that you've said. And it made me think of something, which is really how we're kind of, you and I in this conversation are starting to help people think about DE&I by flipping the script a little bit,
Yes,
like turning it on its head and explaining it from a different perspective. Because I think some of the misconceptions in anything, whether it's DE&I, HR, and all the stigmas that we know are there, it's from like constantly looking at this thing with the same lens and never
yes,
really thinking critically, right?
correct.
So it made me think about how, with something like that I just spoke with someone about, which is how, let's take unconscious bias, for example. You could have a really positive view of people from Canada,
Hmm.
right? You could just love a Canadian. And I have Canadian listeners and they're probably like, yes, love us,
Yes, we
right? But
do.
just for right, but just for an example, you could like every Canadian you've ever met has left such a mark on you and you just love them. You get applicants from Canada, you probably have a positively
Yes,
skewed bias toward
yes,
them, right? So this is taking the same thing that people think DEI is doing. Like, we know that it allows us to think differently about our biases, but we're also not always understanding that some of our bias is
it's
positive.
positive.
Like, it's,
Correct.
it's all about like perspective, and it's not always that way. Obviously, there are a lot of unfortunate biases that are very negative. But I'm just, in the effort of trying to think about things a little bit differently and understanding that positive bias can also have a negative
It has.
effect,
It can. It
right?
also,
Like,
yes,
we could love the Canadians, but again, this is just an example. We could love the Canadians, and then you could just be so focused on hiring that Canadian that they're not the right person for the job.
exactly.
This is right. Like, this is kind of where this whole like bubble that's being kind of
Because we
poked
start
at
to
is,
generalize everything and make
yeah.
everybody the same. And so, in all U.S. people are not the same. All Canadians are not the same. And just as you said, we can look in that lens and think, oh wow, every Canadian I met is this, this, and this, and we can lose focus by really looking at some of the details of this one individual. We don't tend to look at people as individuals. We tend to look at them as groups,
Hmm.
and that's a bias.
Yes,
That is
exactly. I
100% a
appreciate that you
bias.
understood what I was, because I was like, I don't know how I'm going to articulate this without like making it confusing, and like not even that, but like losing what I was trying to say. So I appreciate that you've fully summed that up for
Yes.
me, because it's like that's honestly, that's it, is like the bias, whether good or
Or
bad,
bad.
whether it's like a
Yes.
positive thing, like it is still a bias.
It is
And
still a
so
bias.
the way that DE&I really works, when it works well, is that it helps us to understand those things. Would you agree? Is it like,
I
does it,
totally
it's like
agree.
holding up a mirror?
It is. I totally agree. And it's about looking at each unique individual as an individual and what they have to offer. It's not about looking at groups as a whole. This whole thing about, DNI versus merit that people have DNI was never about that. It never replaced merit based things. What it was, I think we shared in our opening conversation was DE&I started about, it was about recruiting. That's really where it started, about opening up the playing field for everyone to compete. It was never about hiring a quota, and people, again, we talked about, they've mistaken DE&I as affirmative action. Those are two separate things. They are not interchangeable. They're not one and the same. They are totally separate. All DE&I was about opening the playing field and marketing to people to apply for jobs, saying that go beyond your bubble because there may be other qualified people out there that don't look
Right,
like you. That
right.
was what DE&I is about. And if they are not the best qualified, don't hire them. It wasn't about hiring them just to check a box. It was about hiring the most qualified, but going beyond your circle to look for the most qualified. That's where it started. And then it evolved into this whatever, that I needed to check a box, or I needed to say, oh, we have so many of this race, or so many of these females, or so
Yeah.
many of this. That was never the purpose of DE&I. And that's where the misconception, and it became so political because people
Hmm.
and companies have been doing it wrong and they gave it a bad name. That was never the intent of DE&I.
I mean, we have nothing further to discuss. That's exactly right. That's it. Okay, everybody, see you next week. Like, that's literally it. I'm telling you, that's a soundbite right there. So everyone listening is like rewinding. Wait, let me listen to that again. No, that's like, I'm not even trying to make light of it. It's like, it was so perfectly put,
Well,
because
thank you.
of course, I mean, you touch on a few things that are really important to call out, which is that affirmative action has a place in many organizations for a specific purpose,
Purpose.
and
Yes.
D&I has a place in organizations for a specific purpose. And one of the other things that you talked about is that some organizations have not been leveraging DE&I initiatives properly. And
Correct.
so that's where this like blurred line comes in. And unfortunately, we even see from some significant HR organizations like
Yes.
SHRM. I have no
Yes.
problem like calling them out. Everyone that's listened to me for a while knows like SHRM's going to definitely roll off my lips as like one of the companies that I kind of call out, or organizations that I call out, has unfortunately, I think, uh, enabled this improper
Mm-hmm.
leveraging of how DE&I serves a purpose in the organization. It's not to say that everything that they're saying at like, at SHRM is incorrect or, improper, but there's a responsibility, I think, that HR organizations especially have when it comes to how we drive understanding
Standing.
and
Yes.
commitment to these
Yes.
things, right? Like,
Absolutely.
removing equity from DE&I is not equitable.
It is not
Like, it doesn't make any
equitable. We
sense.
still, we mentioned, you still have a pay gap. That's equity. It still exists. And
Mm-hmm.
DNI really just covers the Civil Rights Act of 1964. That's really where you can't discriminate based on these things. That never go, you removing DNI does not replace the law. That is the law. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what, again, what DNI was built on was basically removing biases about when you hire, when you're looking at a person. Just consider all things. Just because this person may have not come from the same background doesn't mean they can't bring something new to the table and offer your company. Give them an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity if they qualify. If they qualify. I have to
Bold
keep saying, yes,
underline
if they
italics.
qualify. Again, their race doesn't make them qualify, their gender doesn't make them qualify, their disability. But it's saying because they may have one of those other markers doesn't mean they don't qualify either.
Right. Right. Two things true at once.
Yes, yes,
Yeah. It's
yes,
so true. It makes me think about something that I talk about often in the subject of, or with the subject of DE&I, which is like taking, I think maybe just to backtrack quickly, when race and gender, which are generally the most commonly talked about
right.
like categories within DE&I because they're, the largest in terms of what we understand
They're
and
the
can
most
see.
visible.
The most, exactly, the most
Yes.
visible. Thank you. That's like, where people tend to go
Go.
naturally. And yet then you hear from people, oh, I don't really want to talk about it. It's political. But the thing is, okay, let's talk about ability versus
Yes.
disability or
Yes.
both, not really versus, not to compare them, but it's like, well, if someone has some sort of unseen disability, which you've shared with this audience very vulnerably that you do, it's like, for example, an accommodation is something that we know is like a part of the law, that
Correct.
reasonable accommodations are our
That's
responsibility to
ability.
employees, right? And it's not to say that every person is going to receive an accommodation or the thing that they request is going to be approved, but this is an example where, if we take DE&I through the lens of someone who has
Yes.
an unseen disability, like, people are going to maybe not even share that they have something that would require an accommodation if a company is like, oh, we don't believe in D&I, because they're only thinking about it
Right.
from one lens and
One
not
lens.
really gathering that this is so much more than race and gender, even though race and gender are really important. We
They are.
know there are gaps still,
Yes.
so they remain important, but those other things are also part of it.
Part of it. Religion. That's
Mm-hmm.
DEI. A different belief system than what um, you come from, or but it sheds a different light, a different point of view. Whom you choose to love. That's
Mm-hmm.
DE&I. All of that is DE&I at its core. And as you said, most people just think about gender and race. That's just two of the of this whole big
Yeah.
picture that we have. The DE&I encompasses so much. I mean, it's about just the way you're thinking. Your background is DE&I because I grew up this way. It it
Yeah.
shows how I view the world versus the way that's DE&I. It's about diversity in all aspects, not just those key markers that we tend to put that lens on, race, religion, background, gender, all of that. It is so encompassing, and it is bigger than our
Yeah.
small little petty differences that we've made it to be. Even our
Yeah.
political views is DE&I.
Right, because everyone should have an opportunity to sit at the same table. And
Exactly.
I have this example that I like to use, especially because I think there's this misconception in DE&I that lends itself to this like equality understanding,
Hmm.
because people often, I had like a someone who like rage commented on one of my reels who was like, this is equality, what do you mean, when I was talking about DE&I, and I'm like, actually it's not. That's equity. Let's like break this down.
Yes.
And so this image that I'm thinking of, and you might have seen it, is I'm actually going to look at it so that I can articulate this well.
Okay.
It's an image of three people at a baseball game, and it's like an image of equality on the left and an image of equity on the right. So you have someone on the left who's particularly tall, maybe an adult, it looks like, a
Hmm.
child much shorter than the adult, and then like a toddler. So obviously the shortest. And on the equality side, everyone gets one box let's say it's about a foot tall, and they're all standing on the box, and the little toddler still cannot watch the baseball game because they're all
Mm-hmm.
behind a fence, by the way.
Right.
And so the adult sees even more clearly, the child pretty clearly over the fence, and then the toddler can't see the baseball game at all. On the equity side, you have the adult without a box standing taller than the fence and able to see and watch the baseball game.
Mm-hmm.
You have next to him the child who's standing on one box who can still see over the fence for the baseball game. And then you have the toddler who's standing on two boxes and can finally see over the fence to see and watch the baseball game.
Right.
And it's a perfectly depicted image of how we can understand what equity is. We're not saying that we're treating everyone the same way, because then that toddler still can't watch the baseball game.
Exactly.
It's about like providing and offering the opportunity for everyone to enjoy the baseball game, but maybe giving a toddler two boxes so they can watch rather than rather than applying the same broad stroke approach,
right.
which doesn't
and
serve
that's
them.
what we have been doing, is applying this broad stroke to everything, and it's not equitable. The toddler is there to watch the game as well. So how can we help that toddler watch the game?
Yeah.
He's not as tall as the others, so let's give him two boxes to stand to just watch the game. That's it. He just wants to watch the game.
Right. It's not that deep. It's okay. Like
it's okay that he gets two boxes.
Right.
It's okay.
It's okay. Everyone's going to be okay. He's going to enjoy the game with his friends, and everyone's going to be okay. Like, does it really cost someone giving him the boxes that much? Right? Does it do anything for the others to disable them from watching the game? No, they're all enjoying the game together.
There's another image out there too that I think we've used in the past, and it's about everyone having a bike, and it's a bicycle.
Okay.
And it's this gentleman with a bike, female with a bike, a kid with a bike, and a toddler with a bike, and it's the exact same bike.
Oh, wow.
So it's a big person's bike. But it's about trying to how do you get from here to the park by riding this bike? Being equal, everybody gets the exact same bike. Being equitable is that you get the toddler a tricycle, you get the kid a smaller bike, you get, the other person maybe a one of those tandem bikes that they can help ride with somebody, but ultimately everybody gets to the park to ride a bike. Everybody gets a bike, but it doesn't exactly have to be the same bike.
Right. And that is exactly what we're talking about here, is that we don't want everyone to have the same bike. It doesn't work.
No. And it's okay for people to use different modes of transportation to get to the same place. It's okay.
It's that maybe that's the title. It's okay. It's
okay. We will all get there. It's okay.
Yeah, right. All the news channels should just like pick this up and say, "Oh, it's all okay. We're going to be fine. It's okay.
You're going to be fine." And it costs you nothing to let someone else ride a bike that they can actually work and utilize.
Totally.
Why would you give a kid an adult-sized bike that they can never reach the pedals? They can't do. Why would you do that?
Right. It's like when we get gifts that don't make sense to us. Like, it's like you're really grateful that someone's given you a gift, but like if you're not someone who is able to walk, giving someone, a membership to like a running club is probably not going to make a lot of sense.
Right. Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. And even at work, having someone where you may have to elevate a desk for someone in a wheelchair for their chair to do the same job you're doing. It costs you nothing to elevate a desk for someone to actually be able to sit there and work.
Right.
Or to lower a desk, it costs you nothing.
Right. And
no one's getting better treatment than another person. Your desk is fine. If you need an adjustment, we'll adjust your desk.
Right. It's funny. I'm like, why is everyone so concerned with everybody else?
Everybody else.
Right?
That's the problem. That's the real question.
They used to say, mind your P's and Q's, right? When I say they, I mean
mind
my
your
parents.
business. We just say mind your own business. You did it the polite way, but really just mind your own business. There's some other words that can go in there, but mind your business.
That I'm literally crying. For anyone watching this on YouTube or Spotify, I've lost all my marbles. That's hilarious. That's really funny. It's so true. That's the title. Mind your business.
Mind your business. Yes.
But also like advocate for people, but also mind your business.
Exactly. Or it really,
Like be a part of the
if you
solution.
just leave other people alone, they don't even need you to advocate.
No,
Let them
that's true.
advocate for them. Yes,
That's
just
probably
mind
true.
your business.
Right, right.
Because
Because they
when you
don't want you.
advocate, you tend to advocate the wrong way
That's it's a
because you
good
make it
point.
about you.
It's a good
You make
point.
it about you.
And
Yeah,
and
I'd rather you just leave me alone. It's okay.
you know what? Honestly, same. I really don't need anybody else. Advocate. I don't want anyone managing me, and I don't want anyone advocating for me. Just let me do it.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah,
I
because
got
like
this.
you did
Yes,
it wrong.
I got me.
You
I tell
helped me
people,
the
I
wrong
got
way.
me.
Yeah,
Yes, yes. You don't know what I need. I got it. I
right.
got me.
That's so funny. I'm still crying. My eyes. I can't. That's so funny. It's so
I'm
true.
sorry, I'm being a little too real and
No,
authentic on this show.
no, there's no such thing. There's no such thing. I literally am
But
like, when can
really,
I have
I got it.
Yolanda back
I
on the
got it.
podcast?
Yes, I got it. I
Yeah.
got me.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And this like it is all so relevant because when we really like look at the argument that's being made that is like we're not hiring based on merit, it's so
Right.
offensive because
It's
people
so offensive.
people like you and me, women in business, you are obviously a woman of color, like it degrades the work that we've done to get to where we are
Exactly.
for our merit.
And we worked hard to get here.
Yeah, exactly.
No one handed me anything.
Right.
I work and the thing is, I'm good at what I do. I
Right.
am so good at what I do.
I love that. Of course you are. That's why you're on the podcast. There's a practicum, everybody. You have to pass a test before you can. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's so true, and good for you, and good for you. Like you
Yeah,
deserve
and
to be
I'm
where you
not
are,
afraid to say that. I am good at what I do. This is I mean, I love it, but I'm also good at it.
and that's why you're in the role that you're in. Not because you're
That's
a
exactly
woman, not because you're a woman of color. Those are
woman of
just
color.
added
No.
benefits because you're bringing your
Yes.
experience to the
And I
table.
bring a different perspective. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the pluses.
Yeah.
But my knowledge, my background, my work ethic, that's what got me here.
Mm-hmm.
No one handed it to me they handed it because my resume said you earned it.
Right. And you know what? The thing is, I don't know that there are people out there who are being handed things and succeeding in their roles. It doesn't
It doesn't
happen.
happen. It doesn't happen.
Like
And if
you're gonna
you
get
are
got.
giving out passes just because a person looks a certain way or have a certain thing, then again, you're doing it all wrong. And that's why we're at this crossroads that we are, is because people have been doing them wrong. If your company has just been going, oh, let me interview so many people of color or so many women just so we can say we did it, you're doing it wrong. If the
Mhm.
women don't qualify or meet the quote, don't interview them.
Right. Right.
It's okay.
It's okay. You're not a misogynist.
You're exactly,
Y-
exactly. And we've gotten into this culture where that's what we think, I guess DE&I is, and it is so not. Please stop doing that if you're doing that. If you're out there and you're listening and you're doing that, please stop doing that. Just hire people for them. And if they are not cutting it, there are ways to get rid of people that are not doing their jobs. No one should have a job if they don't know what they're doing.
Right. And especially if they're not doing it well. I mean, like at the end of
Exactly.
the day, I'm sure you kind of take a similar approach, which is like, people aren't fired like performance wise because they didn't they like worked really hard and they were meeting expectations. They're terminated for performance based things because they didn't meet the
Didn't meet
expectations.
the
And of
expectations.
course that's a generalized statement. There are organizations out there that aren't always
Yes,
doing the right thing. We know that to be
correct.
true, but by and large, like if someone is being let go because they didn't meet expectations, that's what it is. It doesn't usually have to do with other things. We know that, of course, there's discrimination all the time, but
Right.
this is again kind of coming back to this like the ethos of our conversation. It's like, how do we remove bias from every step of the employment process, from recruitment
And if
to
you didn't
managing?
get a job,
Mm,
you were probably not the most qualified. It had nothing
it
to
had
do that
right,
the other person was a woman or color or had a disability. You didn't get the job because you weren't the most qualified. And so stop raising a stink about it because you didn't that saying, oh, they're just doing it to meet a quota. No, you weren't qualified. It's
Hmm.
okay.
Hmm.
It's okay.
It's all going to be okay.
Someone was better qualified than you. It's okay.
Right. And you know what? I really believe that these are the minority of companies where they are discriminatory, because we know that this
Yes.
happens, that there is discrimination in processes in organizations. But again, I believe that that's the minority of businesses out there. It's
Yes,
not the majority.
it is.
And the
Correct.
thing is, they're doing the wrong thing all the time. All the time. It's not just with you. It's not just with like Peter Piper. Like, it's all the time. They're not paying
It's all the
people
time.
right. They're
Yes.
they're they're being biased in their promotions. They're firing
Yes.
people incorrectly. Like, it's everyone.
Yes.
And
It's
that
I
organization's
agree.
probably not going to be in business for a long time.
Right.
So,
But that's why they're facing as much trouble as they are.
right.
Yeah, the core is not the people they're hiring. The core, it is much bigger than that.
Yeah.
They have systemic issues that are taking place.
1,000%. And I think it's so good that we talk about things like this that are being challenged. First of all, I actually think when things like this, DE&I, or any type of like organizational structure or like ideology or idea or program is challenged, it makes it stronger, because you think about, what are the things that I'm not doing well with this? What are the things that I need to focus on? If like for companies that are doing like DE&I rollbacks where they're saying like that doesn't
Right.
matter, like it makes you a smarter consumer also, to understand
Right.
like where maybe it's not even in consumption, but it's also in like where you want to apply for a job,
Quite exactly.
just overall.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I totally
We
agree.
welcome
And
the
it,
challenge.
challenge accepted.
Yeah. I love that you like know what I'm saying and then you put it so much more succinctly. Oh man, I know. You're like the person I need to have by me at all times, because I'm like, what am I trying to say here? I'm like, we accept the challenge. You're like, challenge accepted.
Yes, challenge accepted. Yeah, absolutely. We accept it 100%. And we're
Amazing.
up for it.
Yeah.
We are not going to stop having our voice. We're not going to stop speaking our opinions. We're not going to stop fighting for equity across the board for everyone. You can roll it back if you want to, but we are still going to be here.
Yeah.
We're still going to use our voice,
And it
because it didn't make us. We worked hard to get here, and we're going to be the examples to show you why it matters.
and it benefits everyone. That's the
And
funny
it
thing.
benefits yes, everyone benefits from it, because when you bring in all those backgrounds and all those people with different ideas, you as the companies are able to broaden who you reach. And you love nothing more than the bottom line, the dollar. So this is what helps you bring more of that in, because your target audience has grown because you brought in people like us to your workforce, to bring you new ideas, new creative ways, and different points of view, uh, to offer your consumers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're 1,000% right, Yolanda. It has been truly all the pleasure having you on, and I would love to have you back on, because I
Oh, I
had a
would
lot of
love to.
laughs on this.
Yes.
I'm sure the listeners are going to be like, "Oh, we need Yolanda back ASAP."
Because HR is fun. It is so fun.
It really is. It really is, especially when talking to you. I mean, this is like what the dreams are all about, That's what
Well,
dreams are
thank you.
made.
I would love to come back anytime on any subject. As I told you before, I can pontificate about HR matters with the best of them.
I
So,
love it. I love it so much. And for the listeners, like, you'll be able to get connected with Yolanda through all of the links in the show notes. And Yolanda, I'll be sending everyone to your LinkedIn,
okay.
hopefully getting
Thank
connected with
you.
you. And it's been truly such a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Traci. My pleasure.
Hey, just before you go, don't forget to subscribe to this show so that you are the first to hear when an episode drops each week. And maybe leave a 5-star review and a comment about how much you loved this episode. Plus, if you have someone in mind who would really enjoy this episode, make sure you share it with them. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week.